Well, welcome to mistake number one. The first mistake that we make as singers starts with the foundation of how we make sound, and that is how we move air. So that includes how we take air in and how we move it out. So the basic rule on this for most singers, once we learn how to make a balanced tone, how we learn when we learn to get air going in an energized way, most of the time, what we do is we do too much. So we breathe in too much air. We think we need a huge breath in order to sing a phrase. And then we often, because we've been told repeatedly by very well-meaning teachers that we need to support our sound, we often move our air out in ways that are not helpful. What I mean by that is we'll take a huge breath in, and if you think about a balloon, think about if you fill that balloon to its largest capacity. Think about the air pressure that's inside, that's wanting to come out. Now think about what's going on with your vocal folds right here in your larynx. When they come together in order to vibrate to produce sound, if you have a really, really stretchy full balloon underneath there, there's a lot of air pressure that the muscles of the larynx are going to have to manage. So a lot of times we take this huge breath thinking we need to prepare big time for a big phrase or even a small phrase, and we actually overfill. So the rule of thumb on this is when I take a breath in, number one, each breath is going to be appropriate for the phrase you're about to sing. So if I'm singing a really long phrase, I will take a bigger breath. If I sing a short phrase, I don't need a lot of breath. I need almost none. So you want to feel like when you breathe in, you want to let your belly soften to allow the diaphragm to drop down, filling the lungs. And you just want to feel a nice, comfortable, easy, soft release down into the belly, sides, and back. I like to call it comfortably full, like you've had a nice, nourishing meal, not too much, just enough to make you feel nice and full. Your body will know that you've gotten the oxygen you need for that moment. If I overfill, then I probably have about 3 times more air in the tank than I need for the phrase. When I finish the phrase, I'll either have to blow the rest out in order to get fresh oxygen, or I'll be stacking new air onto old air. And then that starts to build up a feeling of suffocation, really. So sometimes if you feel like if you're getting here in the middle of a song, that's usually what's going on. You've taken really big breaths, you haven't used the entire breath, and then you're inhaling on top of old air. We call that stacking. So the way to mitigate that problem is to go through your songs phrase by phrase and ask yourself, what amount of air do I need for this phrase? And experiment. If you don't take in enough air, then you know you need a little bit more if you don't make it through that phrase. So think about those things when you are inhaling. Moving air out. A lot of times we feel like we have to move air out with a lot of dynamic force. There are a lot of factors that come into this which varies singer to singer, but the general rule is in order for the folds to come together and then vibrate, the air needs to be quite minimal. We don't need a lot of air to vibrate the folds. So you can experiment with this in many ways, but the rule on this is always try it with less air and see what happens. The way to gauge this is notice how much air you are moving through by the muscular engagement in the different parts of your torso. So if I'm singing, I dreamed a dream in time gone by, that doesn't take a lot of air. If I were to really support that, like my choir teacher taught me, I dreamed a dream in time, you can feel the weight coming in to that sound and the extra work that I'm making this do? So those are the two main questions to ask yourself about breathing in general. How much air do I really need for this phrase? And then when I am singing the phrase, how can I deliver this air as gently and as efficiently and as generously as possible? And those are things you can experiment with. So those are your two primary questions to ask about your breathing. How much air do I actually need? Probably not as much as you think. And how much air do I need to move out in order to make the honest, authentic sound that I need to make? All right. Thank you. And I will see you in the next video.